What would you do if a group of self-entitled HOA board members decided to treat your private ranch like their personal campground? Imagine waking up one morning to find a fleet of tents, trucks, and smug homeowners lounging on your property as if they owned it. This wasn't a neighborhood park or shared lot. It was my ranch, my land, and they thought they could trample all over it without consequence. What happened next was a battle of rights, arrogance, and the law, and let's just say they never saw my next move coming. Before I dive into this unbelievable story, make sure you stick around until the end, because the way this whole saga unfolded will leave you shaking your head in disbelief. And, hey, if you enjoy real stories of justice served against entitled people, don't forget to subscribe, tap the like button, and ring the bell so you never miss a story like this again. Now, let's get started. When I first moved onto my ranch, I thought it would be the perfect escape from the constant noise of suburbia and the petty drama of homeowners' associations. My land stretched wide with rolling pastures, a sparkling creek, and a long stretch of fencing that separated me from any nearby neighborhood. I had worked hard for this property, pouring years of savings and sweat equity into creating the kind of space where I could finally breathe in peace. At least, that was the dream. For a long while, it was perfect. Quiet mornings, sunsets that bathed the horizon in fire, and nights filled with nothing but crickets and starlight. Then, out of nowhere came the HOA. Not my HOA, mind you. This was the governing body of a neighborhood about a mile down the road. I had no contract with them, no membership, no ties. Yet somehow they decided my ranch was fair game. It started with a trickle. One weekend I noticed cars parked awkwardly near my fence line. I figured it was hunters or hikers who got turned around. Then, the following weekend, I spotted a couple of tents pitched down by my creek. By the third weekend, it was a full-blown encampment. Dozens of cars lined up, families spreading out across my land, kids trampling my pastures, and grown adults setting up barbecues and lawn chairs as if they owned the place. My private property had turned into a free campground overnight. At first, I tried to reason in my head. Maybe it was some sort of mix-up. Maybe they didn't realize. But the sheer confidence with which they acted made me suspect otherwise. And when I traced the situation back to its source, the truth floored me. It turned out the HOA of that nearby neighborhood had been advertising my ranch as a community green space. They did put out newsletters and emails telling residents they had the right to use it for events, camping, and recreation. And the boldness of it all? They never once spoke to me. They assumed my land was theirs to control, like some playground extension of their suburb. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an invasion. The more I investigated, the more outrageous it became. They weren't just squatting. They had rules for how to use my ranch. They told residents where to park, where to fish, and even where to set up grills. They'd basically taken over. My fences were cut in places, my creek was filled with trash, and my livestock spooked at the noise of fireworks they set off late at night. It was total chaos, and it was my responsibility to clean up after their recklessness. But, as angry as I was, I stayed calm, documenting everything. Photos of cars, dates of gatherings, broken fences, damaged fields, litter piled high, I collected it all. I even pulled copies of the HOA newsletters where my ranch was listed as community property. I knew if I was going to stop this, I had to hit them where it hurt the most. Chapter 1 came to a close with me staring at the trashed creek bed on a Sunday morning, realizing this wasn't just about disrespect anymore, it was about my rights, and I wasn't going to let them take 1 inch more. Chapter 2 began with my decision to confront the HOA directly. Armed with my documentation, I attended one of their board meetings. I wasn't a member, but I walked right in and demanded answers. The smug expressions on their faces told me everything. They didn't see me as the owner of my ranch. They saw me as an obstacle. They brushed me off with condescending remarks, insisting that the community had a right to use the land. that it had always been that way, which was a blatant lie. My ranch was never theirs. What infuriated me most was their attitude. They acted like I was the one being unreasonable for not wanting dozens of strangers on my property every weekend. One board member even suggested I should be thankful for the attention my land was getting. Thankful? For the trash, the broken fences, the liability risks? That's when I knew reasoning with them was pointless. They weren't going to back down. The following weeks were a nightmare. Every time I put up new fencing, it was torn down. Every time I posted no trespassing signs, they were ripped away. My patience thinned and my anger boiled. But I kept my cool on the surface because I knew what my next move would be. I filed a lawsuit. Trespassing, property damage, nuisance, and fraud. I threw the book at them. My lawyer was stunned by the sheer volume of evidence I brought forward. We weren't just going after individuals. We were going after the HOA as an entity. And once the case was filed, things changed quickly. Suddenly, the smugness disappeared. Residents stopped camping on my land overnight. The board members avoided me in public. But the damage was done, and I wanted accountability. The legal battle wasn't fast. The HOA tried to argue their way out, claiming historical use rights and easements that didn't exist. They twisted themselves into knots trying to prove they had any legitimate claim, but the evidence was on my side. Every photo, every newsletter, every complaint I filed was a nail in their coffin. During the months of hearings, my frustration turned into determination. I wasn't just fighting for my ranch anymore. I was fighting against the arrogance of entitled people who thought they could bulldoze anyone in their way. And when the judge finally spoke, the truth rang clear. By the end of Chapter 2, the HOA had been found liable, but what came next would go far beyond what I expected. Chapter 3 opened with the court's ruling, a massive win in my favor. The HOA was ordered to pay damages, not just for the physical harm to my property, but also for the emotional distress and legal costs I endured. We're talking 6 figures. The courtroom was silent as the judgment came down, and I could see the stunned faces of the board members as reality set in. Their arrogance had cost them dearly. But the victory wasn't just financial. The ruling also included a permanent injunction barring the HOA from ever stepping foot on my ranch again. They had to formally retract all claims of ownership, remove my property from their newsletters, and issue a public apology to their residents for misleading them. It was a humiliation they would never live down. Word spread quickly. The once confident HOA that strutted around controlling their neighborhood was now the laughingstock of the community. Residents who once followed their every word turned against them, angry at being misled and dragged into a costly legal fiasco. The board fractured, resignations poured in, and the HOA's reputation was shattered beyond repair. For me, it was vindication. I could finally sit on my porch at sunset without worrying about strangers on my land, without hearing the sound of engines revving by my creek. My ranch was mine again, untouchable and free. And the payout from the lawsuit? It went right back into the property. New fencing, security cameras, and a full restoration of my creekside pasture. What was once a scar of their disrespect became a testament to my resilience. But even as I rebuilt, I couldn't shake the lesson from the experience. Entitlement knows no bounds, and people will take advantage of you if you let them. Standing up, documenting, and fighting back wasn't easy, but it was the only way to protect what was mine. By the end of Chapter 3, my ranch was quiet once again, and the HOA had been taught the kind of lesson money can't erase. If you enjoyed this story of justice served and you want to hear more unbelievable HOA drama, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment down below. Your support helps keep these stories coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.